Welcome to Recovery Reach by Recovery.com, where we talk with marketing and business experts in the substance use and mental health treatment industry to help grow your organization's impact. Because the more people you reach, the more people you can help. Today, Meg Kee of Kee Group Marketing joins us to break down how treatment centers can carve out their niche, align it with operations, and market smarter, not louder. From gut instinct to data strategy, she shares what actually works in a crowded field. Let's get into it. Meg Kee, thank you for joining us today on the Recovery Reach podcast. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. I love working with your team, so this is an honor. My name is Meg Kee. I work in the digital marketing space, specifically within addiction treatment. My background is actually in clinical research marketing as well. Fun fact, my degree is in biochemistry. And I just found my way into this space. I am open that I am in recovery myself. I've worked in many different positions at treatment centers and has really helped me in understanding the digital space.
Yeah, that type of a background probably means that you're pretty hard on compliance and marketing within the law. Is that true?
I am honestly probably super annoying to our clients. So I think we go a little above and beyond. You know what the reality of the situation is? There is a lot of stuff in this industry that is new and upcoming. There's a lot of people that just don't really care to specifically look into these things. I understand the risks, and I think it's a silly, short-sighted, cut off your nose to spite your face situation to not handle these things. And I think a lot of it is really just ignorance. And so one of the things that I always make sure is that, the client is educated. At least I'll give them some sort of little knowledge and that they don't know, so that they kind of understand, oh, this is something we have to look into. So, and just sharing with them, hey, did you read this new article? I bet you haven't,
Yeah. Well, we could go down compliance for a while, and we might lose all of our listeners. It's an important topic, but might not wake people up in the morning. What we do want to talk about today are niches. Niches? Niches. How do you say it?
Niche. Like niche, but niche.
But like a quiche. Okay, because I have this great phrase that says there are riches in niches, but it won't really work with niches. But that's okay. Niches sound a little bit more tasty. So we're going to dive into niches. How to find a niche for your treatment center, why you should find a niche for your treatment center, and kind of importantly, once you do, then what? What do you do? How do you align your operations and your marketing strategies for that niche? So let's kind of jump off and set the foundation. So to you, Meg, like, what is a niche? What does that actually mean?
Yeah. And so for me, and for what I have seen within the addiction treatment and mental health space specifically, competition level is very high. And there are some very, very big brands, national brands, that spend millions and millions of dollars a month on marketing and advertising, right? And then we have a different type of client that provides a really specialized treatment program, or a treatment program that doesn't have, a national brand behind them to spend these dollars. So what do? How do you compete, right? Well, what I found is that the most important thing here is finding what you are best at and pushing into it as hard as you possibly can, and aligning your marketing with how you're set up operationally. So at that point, everybody's working together. And I think for, specifically the situations that I've seen, the difference maker is pulling everybody in to that mission and vision, right? Which includes business development, the admissions team, the clinical team, everybody involved. You know, I've seen a few situations where it seems like business development is pitted against marketing on the internet, right? Here's the reality. Your digital marketing is your best enablement tool for that business development team. You have a great business development team. That's your niche. Push into it.
Yeah. Why is there some tension sometimes between marketing and outreach?
Yeah, it's so funny. And I will be the first to say I've seen it. I really don't experience it anymore because I really do. I truly believe in this so much that digital marketing and the marketing team is actually supposed to hold up your community outreach and provide them everything they need to be successful out in the field. And I think in this situation, right, it's such a growing industry and everybody wants to be seen as I'm doing a great job. And there's a fear of not doing a great job or not being seen as someone who, you know, is bringing in new business, right? It's a fear thing. Yeah. So they pit against each other. But I think it's rooted in fear. I think what I've seen when I've seen the digital marketing teams come together with the business development teams, powerhouse.
Yeah, that's great. If we were going to grade the entire industry on their ability to kind of follow this principle of finding a niche, how would you grade them?
A C.
A C. So passing, but it's nothing to put on the refrigerator.
No. You know, and so I have a background in clinical research marketing for clinical trials, right? And so seeing that process it's far more regulated than this industry. There's regulatory boards that have to review every sentence down to the comma and the period before you post it anywhere, right? And so you really have to get creative with how you differentiate from, you know, a competitor.
Yeah.
And I think the addiction treatment space and the mental health space, I see a lot of people throwing money at problems. You know, it's like the problem child. Well, let's throw a private school at it. Let's throw this at it, you know, and maybe it works, but I you know.
Yeah. Why do you think, like, what is particularly challenging about finding niches or sticking with a niche within this industry over others?
You know, it's funny. I think that it's a very quickly moving industry, new competitors popping up all the time. And so then other competitors feel like they need to make a quick change, right? So, you know, I'll give you an example. I work with a program. They only accept women into their program. They're a mental health women's outpatient treatment program, mental health only. And I will tell you, when they opened, you heard a lot of people talking. They're excommunicating half the population. You know, they don't play by the same rules. They're spending all this time writing staff bios. That really doesn't matter. Well, it's funny because they're absolutely crushing it because they stayed true to who they were and their specific niche and how they were going to do it.
Yeah.
You know,
who was saying those things? Was that kind of some industry chatter, or was that what the public was seeing as they saw the center open up?
No, it's industry chat. I think it's industry chatter. And not only is it, I think, again, it's also a fear thing, right? It's, we're going to pick a niche. What if it doesn't work out? Like, we're putting a lot of eggs in these basket. I also think that when I see owners of facilities be passionate and really they've done their research, they know the patient population and they know how to help them by either because they're very educated on the specific indication or they have a lived experience, which we know, you know, a lot of people in this industry have lived experience. I myself have lived experience, and it's tremendous. And I think utilizing, honestly, your lived experience really helps you find a niche. Yeah. I know it's helped me.
Is there any hesitancy with niches? Because like the first criticism you just brought up is like, oh, you're not accepting half of the population. And, you know, people come into this business to help. And the idea of turning people away does feel like it's in contrast to why a lot of folks got into the biz. So when we're talking about niches, like, are we actually saying no to 75% of the people who might live in a community? Like, how do you look at that?
Yeah, no, I understand. I think the reality of the situation is that how you just stated that's how people, that's the fear, right? Here's the reality. There are a lot of treatment providers and patients have a lot of options. Why are they going to choose one facility over the other, right? To me, if I know I'm a specific patient type, I will go above and beyond to get the best treatment for my personal circumstance. So, on the front end, right? Maybe you have one or two less admissions, but at the end of the day, your outcome measures much better, your length of stay much better, your client sentiment much better, staff happiness much better, turnover rate much less, And long term, when you look at business owners who want to help everyone, right? We're getting to a point where, especially in this industry, a lot of clients have been to multiple facilities. Mm-hmm. And when you have somewhere and you have a place that is really specific on some things, they do really well, I think, and that's supported for me in my lived experience with other treatment providers.
Yeah. Right. I mean, so there's a ton of benefits that we'll get into on the back end. What happens with outcomes after you kind of choose a lane and stay in it. But let's still stick on the early aspect of this, which is like, how do you even begin to pick a niche?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you take clients through an exercise or things that you would recommend people can do to figure out where they should start focusing on.
So I'm going to tell you this, and this is, we are in an age where data-driven decisions, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, let's go with our gut. That's the reality of the situation. And for me, having a lived experience, it depends. You know what? Let me pause and back up. Depends who you're working with. Mm. If I'm working with an owner of a treatment facility who has lived experience, right? That person knows right away who they're going to serve best. I haven't seen anyone not know who they could serve best. When, of course, we're dealing with private equity, that's a different situation. It's more corporate and it's, it follows a different set of rules, right? But what I found is, if you're private equity, there's also funding is usually a little bit different. So we could take a little bit of a route, and I want to pull away from saying you have to find a specific niche in treatment to pushing into more, you can serve everyone. You have to find a niche within your marketing strategy.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What's the difference there and what do you mean?
Yeah. So a niche in your marketing strategy means that you're choosing a specific route to go on your marketing, and you're going to leave the fluff, right? So let's talk examples. Let's talk specifics. I work with a facility in California. They've been around for 10 years. They're all in network. Okay. They're a premier treatment provider. They're in network and they've been in business 10 years. They specifically have, a couple of people who work on the phones for admissions. So the niche and the specifics in the marketing is, hey, we don't want to generate every single person in the world calling this facility. They can't handle that. They're not operationally set up for it. So we need to really put out content on the internet that shows, hey, this is what this facility does, and this is what they do best, and this is why you should call. And how have we done that? So for this specific situation, we worked with their billing company and did an educational series about insurance and what health insurance means and what it means to go to an in-network facility versus an out-of-network facility. How you can understand what the costs associated with treatment will be. I know that's a taboo topic, right? and almost a demystifying health insurance series, and how to get the answers that you need so you don't feel nervous and confused about finances.
Yeah. And go in again and explain why that particular piece of marketing was valuable.
Yeah. So that particular piece of marketing is valuable because number one, we're reaching clients who want to be educated about their benefits prior to going to treatment. Number two, this is a facility that is in network with most insurance providers. So they're going to be able to offer lower rates and lower out-of-pocket costs to most of these clients. And when these clients do call to ask, they have very educated people on the end of the phone who can really explain, okay, this is your specific situation. This would be the cost. If you have further questions, this is who you can call, rather than someone who is brand new and can just answer very, very general questions on more of a higher volume level.
Yeah. And again, why did you choose that for what made that the niche here?
I take a look, and this is where we do make some data-driven decisions, do a little bit of a competitor analysis. And what I see a lot of in marketing is the quick stuff, right? The quick blogs, the quick keyword stuff, the quick backlinks. It's a lot of work to interview and actually write these pieces of content that include subject matter experts. It's a lot of work, And so, but we knew that this facility said, we're willing to put the work in. We think this is valuable information. No one else is doing it. This is that little bit, there's a little niche here in the marketing space that we can fall into because we're willing to do the work here where no one else is, and we can provide really good treatment that aligns with this messaging.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So maybe to sum up kind of what we're getting at is marketing different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because everyone is doing the same. They're going to Google, or they're working on SEO, or they're fixing their Google My Business profiles. But if that is all you do as well, it's hard to stand out, and it's just to see a sameness. So market differently is kind of what you're recommending.
Yeah. And I am recommending that you use your strengths with your digital marketing company or the person that you have internally, push into your strengths and your team strengths, and that is more of the niche that I look for rather than treating a specific population. Let's use another specific example. I work with
I love these examples, by the way. These are great.
I'm a big example girl.
Perfect.
I'm like okay, well, give me an example of that because I don't really believe it. It just sounds like fluff. We work with a facility. One of my team works with a whole facility, and they are all in recovery, right? And so we want to talk about backlinks, which are a very important part of search engine optimization. How do we differentiate backlinks? Okay, we use our actual staff strengths. Some of the owners are part of a few of the local coalitions. And what we did was we said, hey, you go to the coalitions and say, we will write a quarterly newsletter to be posted on your blog. So you don't have to do any work. We'll do it for you. Mm-hmm. We'll write it. And then it provides a backlink to their treatment facility. So it's a local organic thought that we have quarterly for this facility, right? Now, would that have happened by just we're doing AI outreach for backlinks? No. This facility owner knows these specific people because they work together and they know that they do a good job. And so they're willing to work with us, And the second part of that is minimal work for the other party.
Yeah.
So you have to have someone who's willing to do the lift.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a win-win. Okay, so you saw that there was a strength within the facility that a lot of the owners, the leadership had strong ties to local coalitions, to local community groups. So you said, what are the opportunities there?
Yep.
It's not just getting backlinks from any website. Nope. It's a little bit more targeted. And I'll tell you what, now you have, in addition to backlinks, your own brand and your own thought leadership out there in a very positive way. That's a great tactic.
I think people forget, and I think it's difficult because it's, just such a widely known What are you doing on digital? What are you doing on digital? Right? Digital just doesn't need to be your standard, you have 20 new backlinks this month. You created X amount of words in content. You are now ranking number 4 on this keyword in this location. If you really put some thought behind it, you can do some really cool, fun stuff.
Yeah.
You can find your spot on the internet without spending $1 million.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge benefit. Gosh, I would love to hear like more examples. But also I'm curious, we mentioned one of the potential niches or areas you look at are the strengths of the individuals who are on your staff. Yep. What are some other ways to uncover some of these other strengths?
Honestly, this is something that I think is very important, is to get together with not just leadership, but the group as a whole, the staff, and talk about, right? Where can we become visible and how can we help you in becoming visible? Here's another. So for example, I work with a facility that has every level of care you can imagine at different locations. And they serve they serve different patient populations at different locations, right? And their business development team was out they have opportunities to go into a lot of hospitals, a lot of facilities. And so we said, how can we bring this digitally? Because you're bringing in paper items that get lost, whatever. So we created a digital flipbook, an e-flipbook that, that makes a nice flippy page sounds, and you can call right from it. And it has clickable links. You can fill out forms for follow-up information, and it's different. And it also doesn't get lost or thrown in the trash. It's always there on the phone. Quick link click.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. We hand out so much stuff, and it just kind of gets tossed or lost, which I think is probably likely what happened. So if they want to reach out to you again, where do they go? What was that company's name? Who was I speaking with?
Yeah, I think differentiator items are so important, and utilizing your digital team to get those is top recommendation from me.
Yeah.
Make sure everything stays uniform, that everything, you can track attribution and it's kept in one central location.
Yeah. Do you ever do this process by looking at competitors and seeing what they're doing and then saying, how might we do something completely different than them? Like, are there any channels that aren't being utilized in our area?
Yeah, I think it's tough, right? Because it's always a risk to try a new channel. I've had some people try some different interesting channels, and I will say that we've helped some facilities do direct mailing campaigns, right? Especially for mental health, with some vague information. It says, are you feeling stressed? Are you have anxiety? Let's talk about it, right? Just a very vague call to action so that they can at least engage with community members and let them know about the brand if they're ever interested, or they know someone who's interested. So I think there's a lot, but that's a risk, right? Because it's, people always want to know right off the bat, well, what is the cost per acquisition going to be via this medium? We don't know. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get a little bit unlucky, and I think trying out those different things depends on who you are, what your budget is, but I also think keep it simple a little bit. Keep it simple until you are stable enough to say, okay, let's try something new. I have had a lot of people come to me right from the beginning and say, oh, let's try everything right away. So, okay, well, let's take a deep breath first though. Let's make sure everything's set up right first.
Yeah, maybe we should take this opportunity to dive into that. Yeah. When you are doing these, somewhat alternative methods of marketing, which is interesting because a lot of this is just traditional marketing, right? In a way. Well, how do you pitch it first and foremost? Like, how do you pitch it for someone who is trying to get budget? And then from there, like how do you tell what's working and what's not working?
Yeah. So, and I have a different opinion than most about this, and I know, like, obviously I am an agency. I see a lot of agencies kind of with packages of levels of service, right? I don't know. just for me it feels weird. And I think probably because I'm still, I'm like in the feelings space, which I know I think sometimes people don't love that. Some other people do love it. I think you have to look at the client individually and what their goals are and where they are in terms of success, unsuccess, how much debt are, I have gotten onboarded with facilities that have honestly really made a mess of things. And so budget's hard, right? And they ask, well, we can't really, they say we can't really afford this. What do you have a lower tier package? No. So you can be unhappy. And I think that's really important too. If you're a treatment provider and you are going to get an external person or group of people to do your marketing, make sure they believe in you, right? And for me, if I don't believe in something, it's probably just not the best idea. I think we oftentimes in this industry, we look for numbers, right? I don't know. I found that the feeling of that connection with client to agency is so important. And once you hit that kind of right level and there's trust there, you really don't have to fight for budget anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't experience a lot of that. I'll be honest. I really don't. Usually it's actually me on the opposite side saying, client says, oh, let's spend on this. And I say, yeah, maybe not. Maybe let's pull back on that. I tend to fall a little bit more on the frugal side. And I like to see really how we can enable on that community engagement side because it's longer lasting relationships and it can really be a differentiator and it's lower cost.
Yeah. So, you mentioned CPA before, like when you are thinking of these programs to run ahead of time, do you write down goals for what you are hoping to see? Or are these true like experiments and you just kind of throw them into the wind, see what happens?
No, I think that everything really does differ state to state. Every state is wildly different. It also depends on if the client is in network versus out of network. What's their target demographic? And so I actually think it's really important that when I meet with a client for the first time, I ask them what their ideal CPA is. I already have something in my head, but it's really good for a client to just come out and say, this is what I want to be at. And what I also find is, and I say, okay, what is it now? And they will say a number. And then I will say, okay, how do you know? They don't know. They do not know. It's hard to track these things accurately. It's a labor of love to set up these processes and procedures and then to make sure that people follow them accurately and compliantly. And oftentimes I find that clients would come to me and say, we're looking to be at a particular CPA, all encompassing all of our marketing spend. This is where we are now. And when I ask, what is that based on? It's not right. So then we usually kind of meet somewhere in the middle. 60 to 70% of the time, they end up telling me a higher number than I thought we would be at. And so then I'm happy as a clam.
What makes CPA so tough to nail down for folks? And why do you feel like it's oftentimes like a wish instead of kind of what they need based on their numbers?
Yeah, well, and I could go on for days about this because I think CPA, depending on the type of client that you are serving, it's very different, right? We shouldn't be looking at a cost per, admission for a client. We should be looking at our overall return on investment. And that is very difficult because there's the lack of connector pieces in place. A lot of these facilities are privately held or they're people with lived experience who just have a really immense passion to help other people and want to make it their mission. It's hard to get those systems into place, and those systems can be expensive because we are in the healthcare space. We have very specific rules that need to be followed with regard to, patient privacy and where data can be stored, what data can be connected to what, right? And who can see that data. And I think that feels overwhelming for a lot of people. So they just say, you know what, back off on that, right? So I think that's the kind of feel that I get for most people when I ask. And to be honest, I find that as long as clients are making progress on their overall goal month over month, they're okay. They're okay.
Yeah.
I haven't lost anyone in well over a year. So
congratulations.
I feel like there are very unhappy months. There are months, but I think it's, something important to talk to about facility owners is, hey, you really, with 30 days, not enough of a data trend to make any decisions on anything. Let's set those expectations up front.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Instant results versus a little bit of lagging results. It's tough to communicate that, even in-house when you've got folks, asking for how's that new campaign working. You're like, hold on, just give it time. But money's going out the door. Like, you can understand the urgency to see something.
Yeah, of course.
Which it kind of, that example you gave about the newsletters at the local coalitions. When you set about to do that program, were you looking for like direct response, patient acquisition leads, or were you looking more for awareness building and just getting the name and these people in front of the community?
Yeah, we're looking for awareness building, and I think that awareness building is a delayed gratification for a lot of these owners, and it's so important to understand that if it was easy, everyone would do it with greatness, right? And they don't. And it's so important that we connect with the right parties and the right groups to really put our brand in the places that it needs to be long term. Those are human beings that experience what our clients experience, or have loved ones that experience what our clients experience. And so I will say it has provided, some clients who have been helped through the facility, right? But those are not, you can't quantify that. And you don't know how many results that's going to yield. You can't predict that.
Yeah.
And it's not a data driven, but it's a no-brainer that you need to connect with the local community and the local coalitions, the local services that you have relationships. I'll use another example. We had a facility that was very close with the local DA, and they went and I said, hey, let's reach out and see if we can get, if you can be the preferred provider, you can at least let people know that this is an option for them. And then they listed them on their website as a resource. So now we've got three awesome things. We've got a relationship with a government source. We've got a backlink on a .gov website. Great.
Huge.
That costs nothing. But the time it took to send an email, and we've got a relationship with someone that's growing because they clearly have seen that we are willing to offer help even to clients that we cannot help.
Yeah.
And I've definitely found that the clients, it takes some time. I think people don't know, you should do a series on demystifying SEO,
Yeah.
Clients are like, let's spend more on SEO this month. I'm like, okay, what does that mean to you? This means something very different to everyone.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that clients really understand, listen, you're doing work that a lot of people are unwilling to do, and creativity that people just don't explore. And I think that sets facilities apart long term.
Yeah. The data drivenness, I love how you're kind of going back and forth, being a very data driven person, but then you are also leaving room for some gut feelings and some gut takes. And one of the things with all this data for marketing, it has really turned the marketing department into, direct response, performance-driven marketers, which is a good thing. At the end of the day, you have to meet your census, but it almost is like a monoculture in a field where you're growing the same crop. Because if you are only looking to point your marketing cannons at someone who is ready to dial, you're missing out on the rest of the community who do not know who you are or what makes you special. And you could get to them even earlier. So you're the first they think of when they are reaching for the phone instead of competing, with PPC to be the number one on Google. It's tough.
I love it because, with the way things have changed so rapidly with the usage of AI and the automations and the data that's available very quickly now, if you have a great gut instinct, because I think education is so important in this field. I will also say that, I have a degree in biochemistry, but I also have a lived experience. I've been sober almost 10 years. I'm very open about that. My lived experience, my gut instinct is right. My gut instinct is usually right, especially if I'm speaking with someone who also has the same lived experience and we have that same gut instinct, we're going to go for it.
Yeah.
And I think that is the use of AI, the amount of data available. Now, when we have a gut reaction and we make a decision based on gut, it takes far less time to implement because we have tools at our fingertips to make things go quite a bit quicker.
Yeah. I'm curious, we were talking about kind of using your gut or your feelings as well as data.
Yep.
It's a whole holistic picture to start these campaigns or to pitch these campaigns. What about, especially when the data is kind of hard to come by, like when do you know that one of these marketing campaigns isn't working and you should stop doing it or put resources into something else?
That's a little bit of your gut. You know when something isn't going right because someone's going to be unhappy. When someone's unhappy, you check the data that you do have, right? And if you have none, which that's a problem, you shouldn't have none. You should always have at least some sort of tracking source on things. If you do have some data, you take a look at it, right? And so I'll use kind of an example. Let's utilize a Facebook advertising versus a Google advertising. A lot of times I've seen clients be very unhappy with Facebook advertising because there's a lot more volume in Facebook. Now we have to decide, is this not working or is it working? However, the cost per touch point is far less money. And so that's what typically we run into. When we run social media advertising, the cost per lead is 20 times less expensive than it is on Google, at least. So the end client, treatment facilities are touching 20 times more volume. And so they're saying, this is terrible. We're talking to 100 people and only one is even really interested in our services. What is going on? I said, okay, well, that costs you 30% of what it costs you on Google, And so I think education surrounding kind of what does it mean to say when something isn't working is really important, right? In the same sentence, if we're spending the same amount of money on, let's say, Google as we are on Facebook, and the cost per acquisition on Facebook is 15 times more than Google, then we know it's not working. And we just say, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to pivot. Make the decision to pivot and stick to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Tell us a little bit about Kee Group Marketing.
In my background, I have a degree in biochemistry, and I was an absolute mess in my younger years. I have 2 children now, so, married, wife, mother, the whole deal. But I have a past background in clinical research, and when I did get sober, I worked in treatment and admissions, and I worked all over the place, and I worked in operations and marketing. Then I went back to clinical research marketing. I got an awesome job offer to be the director of marketing at a detox in the Northeast. I took it and I loved it, and I did really well with it. Honestly, I did really well with it. I was really able to put, what I kind of push out much larger now. But from that, comes other people saying, oh my gosh, who's doing that stuff, And then I also had a phenomenal group of women who I had worked with in the past in that kind of clinical research, that marketing, and we kind of just came together and clients just came. Clients have just come, and we are very, we're a little bit weird where we only take specific amount of clients in specific areas, just because there's only so much that I don't want to be competing against each other. I want all of my clients to be in an ecosystem where they're providing really good services, no matter what they're treating, how, I want them to provide services that are clean and that we believe in and that they believe in. And I don't want them to feel like they can't come to their marketing company, or they feel like their marketing company is paying someone more attention than them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always tricky in an agency.
Yeah, so we have a cap on how many clients we'll take in each location. So like, for example, we're full in a few states. And we also, if we're going to bring someone on new, we definitely evaluate it and say, hey, what should we do here? Does this feel good? We may ask another client.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to, and sometimes our clients will do blogs together, or they'll do guest series for each other, or they'll provide, so that's been really nice being able to do that.
I love that. Do you look for folks that they offer specific services or certain levels of care, or are you more generalist and will take anyone and anyone if it's in certain states that you're serving?
It has to feel right.
Yeah.
It has to be the gut instinct. It has to feel right. So, I have very different services. It's not about we are mostly in the addiction treatment, mental health space. That's not to say I wouldn't take something else in clinical research. We have done some work in clinical research as well, because we just have a lot of experience there. So we, for example, have in California, we have quite a few facilities, but they all differentiate in some way, or they are kind of partners with each other. So they may be very close to each other. One's out of network, one is in network, or one is adolescence, one is this, one is that. So I think for us, we don't differentiate based on levels of care. Honestly, it's a feeling thing. Yeah. And I think I know that's a little bit odd of a business strategy, but you know what? That's who I am.
I get it. I've worked with a number of marketing agencies, and sometimes when you just go by numbers, and what their outcomes are, you're disappointed. It does matter. You're working with these people pretty closely over a number of years that you work well together and you have the same kind of background.
Yeah, sometimes. And then, they'll probably text me like a motivational text at 5:00 in the morning. You have to like the person that you let do that.
Gosh, yeah, that's true. I don't know if I would like anybody who did that, but
I'm up, so, but, for us, it's really just been this organic. And so Kee Group is, we have some fathers that work with us that are our employees, but my core leadership team, they're all mothers.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah, they're all mothers. So we all, it's just really important to us that, clients align with our values. I don't want to be in a sticky situation where I say, hey, I see that you're doing something and that is wrong, or that feels wrong, and I don't like it. I don't want to be in that situation. I'm not going to put my team in that situation either. Yeah. So, it's kind of where we fall, and it's done really well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, congrats on all the success that you've seen. Is there anything else we didn't talk about with niches or with Kee Group that we should definitely cover?
The only thing I'll say is sometimes it's easy to get discouraged in a marketing strategy, right? It's easy to get discouraged. And I definitely myself, I wake up days that, let's say I'm having a difficult month with a few clients, and, you get that feeling where you're like, do I even know what I'm doing? Do I even know what I'm doing? And I urge owners of facilities and people who work in this industry to just take a breath, because that's what I have to do at times, and you get to work, right? Oftentimes, a lot of people aren't willing to work hard. If you work hard at it, you're going to figure it out. And as long as you know that, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's going to be fine.
All right, Meg. Thank you so much for joining the pod. Gosh, we covered a ton of stuff about niches, marketing, targeting. I think it's super helpful, and I hope folks can implement it at their own shops.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you so much. I have worked with some other people on your team, and it's been a pleasure. It's really nice to find other people that have similar values. It's nice. It's a great community.
That's super kind of you to say.
Thanks.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.
You too. I'll talk to you later.
Right, bye. That's today's episode. Thanks for listening to Recovery Reach. We'll see you again next week. And remember, the more people you reach, the more you can help.